Something about the era, the costumes, the acting, the messages about slavery, friendship, and bullying, all of these things, and developing courage to stand up for yourself and fight for what's right is what I really loved about Samantha and American Girl Holiday. It was my favorite movie as a kid, and I've watched it dozens of times because of it, to the point that it started to skip. Hello everybody, hope you're doing well, and this is my channel, Lots of Dolls, where I talk about dolls, obviously. So I wanted to talk about American Girl because of the title. I want to talk about a lot of other dolls, just besides Monster High and Ever After High, and Rainbow High, of course. I would like to talk more about Mermaid High, Bratz, BJDs, and Lottie Dolls. There's so many dolls out there. Katie is a Newbury doll. She's not an American Girl doll, but she was my first ever doll that got me into 18-inch collecting. Katie started it all for me. Sage was the first ever American Girl doll I got in 2013. It was a gift for one of my parents getting remarried, and I got her. And I loved this doll, Sage, because she was an artist like me. She didn't have blonde hair. She wasn't your typical Barbie-esque doll. She had a nice body type that was more realistic compared to Monster High dolls, so it was a really nice change for me. I loved their face. It looked like a girl, but it wasn't super childlike, but it wasn't too grown up either, like Barbie's was. And I loved their hair. I loved so much about these dolls, so I started to collect them.
To tell you a bit about the company, if you don't know, was created in 1980, in the 1980s, to teach girls about education in the historical era involving the issues that happened at the time. The three dolls that were available at the time was Kirsten, Molly, and Samantha. There was not a physical store yet, and the brand was called Pleasant Company. Then it transferred over to American Girl, Mattel, because Mattel bought it, and now it's
owned by Mattel. The dolls originally started with historical dolls, and then they branched out to Truly Me's, dolls that look like you, just like you. It's like there's a bajillion names for it. And then there's Girl of the Years, where the doll is only limited to one of the Girl of the Year. And then there's also dolls that are friend dolls to the Be Forever dolls, and Krissa, where she was Girl of the Year 2009. She also had friend dolls for her movie. I was able to get Samantha, who I paid too much for, honestly. I did. I mean, I didn't, but my dad did, but I'm going to pay him back for it. But yeah, there's a lot of annoyances in this doll community, one of which is scalpers, but that's with any doll, though, not just specifically geared towards American Girl. So yeah, I started off with Sage, got Samantha, and then I was able to get a few My American Girls, and then I was able to get Krissa Maxwell wearing her iconic Krissa cut, and Cecile. And that's where my collection stopped. And I also have an American Boy doll that I made, customized, and that was it. And I was happy with that for a lot of reasons, and I'm going to talk about those today. But I'm going to talk about the things that I don't like about American Girl and why I stopped collecting them. I'm going to get the obvious point out of the way, the price point. American Girl dolls aren't that affordable compared to other dolls on the market. If you think about our generation, Journey Girls, or even Newbury, they were a lot more affordable compared to American Girl dolls. The reason for this is because they're supposed to be high quality dolls with high quality clothes. The dolls originally were around $80, but the price has gone up to $115 over the years, which they don't come with much accessories. Some dolls come with earrings, like Sage did, and she also came with a ring. And there was other dolls that also, like the Girl of the Years, always came with a book, and so did the historicals. So Truly Me dolls didn't, but they came with a charm. But and they were able to like go online to this website called Interstar University, and you could play a lot of games and interact with other people on there. It was a cool website, and then they retired it. But the dolls they don't come with a lot, but I also thought as a kid that it was because they were 18-inch dolls. So maybe they required more plastic and cloth and more money in regards to the wigs, the glass eyes. I mean, not inside eyes, the blinking eyes, and the metal, and the way that they were sewn together with a tie. Like, they didn't have a zip tie, they had actual ropes, and then they discontinued that recently. But I always thought maybe that was the reason, or that they were just simply money hungry, which, hey, I wouldn't be surprised at this point. Perma panties. Yeah. Remember this controversy? It was a way for American Girl to cut corners on costs, and didn't sit well with people. Their underwears were sewn onto their ass.
It made no sense, and it was stupid, and people hated it. They ended up going back to the original way the dolls were made, but I still haven't forgotten American Girl.
Two issues: if you don't like the price or you don't like the perma panties, simply buy secondhand or don't buy the dolls at all. I'd like to play a game with you. So, looking at these dolls, what is something that you found in common? Was it the face mold? Was it the hair type? Specifically, take a guess. How many American Girl dolls of the year have blonde hair? My guess was 7, but it's actually 8. You include Tiny Grant, who was a contemporary doll, but as a Girl of the Year itself, it was 7.
Mary Hopkins 2003, Rainey Holland 2010, Nikki Fleming 2007 or 6, McKenna Burrows 2012, Isabel Palmer 2014, Leah Clark 2016, and Kira, don't know her last name, 2021.
Now, how many dolls share the classic face mold? The answer is 7. Finally, how many dolls have light skin / aren't a person of color? 12, which brings me to my next point, as you probably guessed, lack of diversity. American Girl really does struggle with this. Lack of diversity within the face molds, the hair types, and the skin tone, especially when it comes to Girl of the Year dolls. There are so many stories, ethnicities, and cultures that they haven't explored, and they could, but they choose not to, and I'm not sure why. Heck, American Girl even came up with the Create Your Own dolls, which are $200, where I've seen plenty of fans create dolls that look so much better than the dolls they're putting out sometimes for Girl of the Year. And like Kenny, for an example, generic and boring. And I'll just show you a few of them that American Girl didn't come up with. I don't understand this. There's so much you can play with American Girl. These dolls are personally my favorite. These dolls were created by one mom, and these dolls are supposed to represent 2 twins.
One has albinism, which is a lack of pigment in the skin. This is the same condition that Delilah has in Rainbow High, where she is very sensitive to light.
These dolls exist only because American Girl came up with Create Your Own American Girl dolls because they wanted to make more money, which is my guess, because they're $200. Otherwise, I wouldn't have saw these beautiful dolls. And it's really sad to see that American Girl didn't represent people with vitiligo, without sight, people who have autism, people who don't have hair. They didn't represent mixed children enough either. They did so with Kanani and Jess, but that was about it. And what about Korean representation and Filipino representation? I'm not seeing those dolls coming out yet. I know that they did show representation in regards to Josie in the wheelchair and McKenna Shoots for the Stars, which was nice, but she wasn't the protagonist. And I know McKenna in the movie had dyslexia, which was a nice touch to show representation in the main character. And I also know that Joss did have hearing loss. She was deaf, half deaf in one ear, so that's a good progress. But there's still a lot more American Girl can do. And it doesn't help their case that they got rid of two of the best American Girl dolls to ever exist, Ivy Ling and Cecile Ray, both friend dolls to the historical dolls of Julie and Mary Grace.
Not to mention that Ivy was the only Chinese American doll that you could purchase in the historical line, and there hasn't been a Chinese American Girl doll besides, I think you pronounce her name like as Corinne, who was the Shears Girl of the Year 2022, who doesn't get a movie.
From what I've seen so far, but the year's not over yet, and she is a Girl of the Year, so I guess she's up in center, but she wasn't a consistent historical figure the way Ivy Ling was. My final complaint, I would say, and this isn't just directed towards American Girl, it is also directed towards Mattel, MGA, any company that uses China and Indonesia to still manufacture dolls today. Even the Cree productions from Mattel were made in Indonesia. It says so on the back of their body. I will insert a picture here. Now, I don't own any recent American Girl dolls to confirm whether or not these dolls are still made in China like they used to be for the past, 20 years? But I just wanted to, they did promote or, spread awareness for slavery in Samantha's movies, so it just I'm not sure Indonesia are treated fairly or properly by Mattel. I've heard stories where they don't get a fair amount of breaks, that they aren't getting paid properly for the hard work that they do to manufacture these dolls. But I am not an employee either, and I've never been to the Mattel warehouse, so I don't know if this is true. But if it's true, it's not cool, Mattel. It's really not. You're in a multi-billionaire company. Make sure to pay your employees with respect. I am also light-skinned, and I can't speak for how accurate American Girl's representation is of people of color. And I am not the best expert in American Girl, but I do know a decent amount, so if you want to leave anything down below, please do. But these are my main concerns as to why I stopped collecting. I was able to get my hands on Cecile for a really good price, and I just stopped there because Cecile is a beautiful doll, and it's very disappointing to see that they never brought her back. They brought back Samantha, Felicity, but they never brought back any of the friend dolls yet. And they're starting to there's finally Z, and there was Corinne with Asian descent that came out recently, but I'm hoping that they include more diversity in the lineup for Girl of the Years and take these complaints into consideration. Maybe then I would like to support the brand again. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Have a good day. Bye.